what mental health, mental wellness, and mental disorder is about. Okay, so mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses, normal stresses of life, to realize their abilities, to learn well, work well, and to contribute to their community. Now, if you have a mental health disorder, it means that you have an illness that is affecting the way you think, you feel, and you behave, and it's affecting the way you show up in the places where you function, be it at work or at home, in the community, or even just on a personal level, interacting with yourself. While mental wellness is about prevention, coping with life stressors, and being resilient when we face stress, worry, loneliness, grief, and sadness. Let's continue. Next. So, according to the WHO, mental health is a state of well being in which each one of us can cope with the normal stresses of life. Stress is a very normal part of life. We are able to realize our potential. We can work productively and fruitfully, and we're able to make a contribution to our community. And it's not merely the absence of disease. It has several components. Mental health affects our body physically. Of course, it affects our minds, our emotions, our behavior. It affects the way we interact with other people socially. It affects our relationship with the higher power. And it affects the way in which we find purpose and meaning in life. Let's look at the next slide, which looks at the relationship between work and mental health. Work and mental health affect each other. True or false? Let's have some. You can respond on the chat box. Do work and mental health? Does your work affect your mental health? And can our mental health affect our work? True, isn't it? Yeah. So there are two sides to this coin about work and mental health. So meaningful work, thanks, Joy. Yeah, true. Even Anne says yes. Our work affects our mental health, and our mental health affects our work. So when we have meaningful work, it's protective of our mental health. It contributes to a sense of accomplishment. It contributes to our confidence and identity. It supports our financial independence and livelihood, of course. It promotes stability and peace. And also, if you're living with a mental health disorder or you have a disability, I'm not saying that a mental health disorder is a disability, but if you have a disability or something that might make you to not be fully functional, but yet you find a space in which to work and to contribute to community, it actually promotes good mental health. In fact, many times when you meet somebody, let's say at a party or you're at a meeting, and you introduce one another. So, hi, how are you? My name is Violet. Hi, how are you? My name is Doreen. And then they ask you, oh, so good to meet you. Where do you work? That's a very common question, isn't it? Or what do you do for a living? Okay. And so work gives us a sense of identity. Let's go on to the next slide, saying how meaningful work is protective of mental health. Now, on the contrary, when we have a harmful or a negative work environment, it can significantly contribute to either making us sick physically, mentally, psychologically, or worsening pre-existing conditions. Let's say you are diabetic, or you had hypertension, or you have asthma, and then you're going through a hard time in the office, or you're going through a hard time at work, or something is happening with your children, or with your spouse, or with your siblings, or something is happening at work that is really affecting you negatively. You're most likely going to find that if you're diabetic, your blood sugars will go out of control, or your pressures will be on the higher side, or you might need to get nebulization. If you're asthmatic, you might even have to call in sick, because it's making pre-existing physical conditions worse. Or if you have depression, anxiety, PTSD, substance use disorders, bipolar disorder, it's triggering an episode. Or you end up using unhealthy coping mechanisms such as harmful use of alcohol and psychoactive substances. You might start eating unhealthy. You might find you're not able to sleep. You might find that if the workplace is a negative environment, might be that you're sitting the whole day without even taking breaks to sit up and stretch your legs. Then it might predispose you to obesity, and even it might predispose you to having a heart attack. They now say that excessive sitting, sitting without taking breaks for a long time, is the new smoking. And the other thing is that your work environment and what happens to you at work also seeps back into what's happening to you at home. Let's say you're at work all the time. Your family doesn't even get to see you. They wonder where you are. Okay. So some people actually do tend to hide at work, or they have so much work they have such a high workload that they're not able to balance their life between family and community and work. And therefore, it can bring family conflict and dysfunction. That shows us yet again that's so important for us to look at our mental health at the workplace and how mental health affects all spheres of our functioning. Let's go on to the next slide. So the this talk is actually taken from the theme for this year's World Mental Health Day that was actually held on the 10th of October. World Mental Health Day is held the whole world over on the 10th of every October. And for us, it was Mazingira Day, but we also celebrated World Mental Health Day. And the theme for this year is prioritizing mental health at the workplace. Now, why is it important to prioritize mental health at the workplace? Because up to almost 60% of the world's population is at work at any given point. And then 15% of those working age people were estimated to have a mental health disorder of one sort or another in 2019, leading to 12 billion working days lost every year to the two most common mental health disorders, that is depression and anxiety, at a cost of 1 trillion US dollars per year in lost productivity. If nothing else, that should drive employers, employees, and everybody in the society to look at mental health in the workplace and how mental health and the workplace interact with one another. Now, it's important for us to consider mental health at the workplace because there are effective actions to prevent mental health risks at work, which we're going to be looking at, to protect and promote mental health at work, and to support workers living with mental health conditions. Okay, next. So this is a picture actually of last year in September 2023, the Directorate of Mental Health launched the Kenya National Wellness Guidelines for Mental Health at the Workplace. And this is a happy picture showing how the guidelines were being launched. And every employer in Kenya is supposed to be cascading these guidelines so that we have happy, healthy, and productive people at work. Let's go to the next slide. This is an excerpt from the mental wellness guidelines for Kenya, as I said, launched in September last year. Approximately 3.7 million out of 24.9 million in the workforce live with one form or another of a mental health condition, such as anxiety, depression, substance use disorder, schizophrenia, or bipolar mood disorder. And for a long time, we have known, for those who work in the health sector, that 1 out of 4 people attending general outpatient health facilities have undiagnosed depression and anxiety that is making anything else that they're going through worse. And untreated mental health disorders cost the Kenyan economy 62.2 billion in 2021. Imagine, that is such a lot of money. And therefore, that's why the government decided to come up with a workplace mental wellness guideline to emphasize promotion, prevention, care, and support of mental health at the workplace. As quoting the Director General of Health, the Acting Director General of Health, Dr. Amor. Let's go on to the next slide. So what is the economic burden of mental health? According to the study done by the Ministry of Health in 2021, as I said before, mental health cost megabucks to Kenya, 62.2 billion, of which 30% came from presentism, as in you are in the office physically, your body is in the office, but your mind is elsewhere. 49% came from absenteeism. Somebody has not shown up at work because they have a mental health condition that is affecting them. And 12% were losses due to premature death, because what we go through in our mind affects our bodies and vice versa. And 9% was spent on total mental health expenditure. Let's go to the next slide. So as we have seen, mental health problems are issues that lead to changes in our emotions, our thoughts, our behavior, causing distress and impaired personal functioning, which has a negative impact on an individual in a workplace in terms of performance, morale, overall capacity to work, capacity to be productive, and a capacity to put their best self forward. Let's go on to the next slide. So what is the impact of mental illness on organizations? Increased absenteeism, decreased productivity, reduced profits due to mental health problems, and rising costs spent in terms of healthcare if these issues are not attended to. Let's go on to the next slide. The other thing that happens is that it is therefore very, very important for us to look at what are some of the things that promote mental health disorders at the workplace. Oftentimes, I could look at them in 3 ways. It's either something to do with the work, the nature of the work, the people who you're working with, including yourself, the way you communicate in that organization, your culture, the things that you have in place in order to help somebody grow in their career and to be able to remain mentally well, or a combination of those. We'll look at this in a little bit more detail here. So at the risk for mental health at the workplace includes, let's start off with work content. Maybe your work lacks variety. It's not using your skills, or you really don't know what your work content is supposed to be. So you don't have any clear guidelines on what you're supposed to be doing at a workplace. Next is work schedule. You might be doing shift work. So when the rest of us are asleep, you're at work. When we come back in the evening, you're going to work, and then in the morning, that's when you're coming back to work and your spouse is leaving and your children are going off to work, okay? You might be having inflexible work schedule, unpredictable hours, long or unsociable hours. In terms of equipment and environment, the equipment might be inadequate or outdated. You might be working in a hardship or high-risk area. You might be being exposed to environmental stressors such as excessive noise or unsafe or poor physical working conditions. You might be working in an office that is poorly ventilated, or you might be working somewhere in the hot sun where you don't have anything to cover even when it starts to rain. You may be experiencing work overload or underload, machine pacing, high levels of time pressure, continuous subjection to deadlines without your supervisor checking in with you how well you're handling what's already on your plate, or getting a lot of pressure from top management that you people must produce this and the other, and yet you do not have enough time or equipment to, or even the skill set to be able to do what you're supposed to be doing. You might also be having all of those, but then when you lack control over the amount of work you're doing, and you have limited support, or you experience violence, harassment, or bullying, you are more likely to get depression, anxiety, PTSD, or any other mental health disorder. Let's go on to the next slide. The other risks for mental health at the workplace include career stagnation and uncertainty, where you're not being promoted, or you're promoted beyond your ability to work. And where the other things are things like poor pay, job insecurity, low social value of the work that you're doing, and conflicting demands of work and home, including caregiving responsibilities. There's a term called the sandwich generation. Sometimes many of us at some point you reach an age where you are perhaps in your 40s or 50s, you're taking care of your parents, but you're also taking care of your children, and you have pressure coming from both sides. And sometimes you might need to go take your children, you need to attend Parents' Day. At the same time, you're supposed to be taking your dad or your mom to hospital for this or the other. They may need an operation and things like that. And also the other thing that can also be a risk for mental health at the workplace is when both the major caregivers, the major providers at home are both working very, very busy jobs, leaving them little time for themselves and their families, and also low support at home. Let's go to the next slide. Other risks for mental health at the workplace include organizational culture that enables negative behavior, limited from support or authoritarian supervisors, violence, sexual harassment or bullying, stigma, discrimination and exclusion, unclear or poor communication channels. There's no sound. Can you hear me now? Genevieve says there's no sound.
Yes, Dr. We can hear you very well. Maybe Janet can try to maybe leave the meeting and join again. Could be the issue.
Poor work-life balance. Thank you, Doreen. Job insecurity, irregular or inadequate pay. No recognition for, when you do a good job, unclear reward system, limited resources for rest and relaxation, no organizational employee wellness policy, lack of an employee assistance program, and lack of people who have been identified as mental health champions or mental wellness champions who you can talk to if you're going through something that is affecting you. So these are some of the risks to mental health at the workplace. And actually, when you look at them, if you deal with these things, then you will have a mentally healthy workplace. But let me not get ahead of myself. Let's go on to the next slide. So work can be stressful, and our lives generally can be stressful, whether it's from home, from work, from school, from all the other relationships that we have, and the work that we're doing or not doing, and the kind of relationships that we maintain at work, or the culture in which we are working. So what is stress? Stress is basically something that tends to overwhelm our capabilities or which we perceive to be beyond our ability to cope with. And when we are constantly stressed, then you will find that you feel afraid, you're worried all the time, you feel overwhelmed, you might have difficulty in concentrating, you might eat more or less than usual. They would be changing your sleeping patterns. You go to bed, you can't sleep. 3 a.m., you're still counting sheep. Imagine aches and pains, particularly muscle tension, especially in your shoulders. You might have issues with your tummy. You might start getting diarrhea or constipation. You might start feeling dizzy. You might start experiencing nausea. You might even lose your sex drive. And surely that is not good for you. Let's go on to other signs and symptoms of stress. So what are some of the sources of stress? Stress first, as I said before, is a normal part of life. But there are a number of things that can be sources of stress. One is work-related stress, or even the fact that you don't have work, or you're in a season of you're now going into retirement. That can be stressful. Bereavement, loss, it can be illness, relationships and family problems, fear of crime or problems with neighbors, financial pressures, uncertainty, or waiting for important outcomes. These are all possible sources of stress that we go through at one point or another in our lives. Let's go on, please. Now, if you don't deal with stress, then you're likely to end up with complications such as mental health disorders, such as depression, anxiety. You're likely to end up with heart disease, high blood pressure, muscle aches, sleeping difficulties, problems with your GIT. If you had diabetes, likely to make any pre-existing physical condition that you had worse, and lower immunity against diseases. Let's go on to the next slide. If stress continued without intervention for a long time, you'll actually end up with burnout. Now, burnout has been described as a complete mental and emotional fatigue lasting weeks at a time, generally as a result of exposure to prolonged stress. So, the common symptoms of burnout, you'll know you're burned out if you are exhausted all the time. Even when you rest, you wake up in the morning, you're tired. You're detached. You no longer feel like you don't even, your work lacks meaning. You don't even want to go to work, okay? You lack a sense of purpose. You lost hope. You feel you don't, you lose trust, and you start feeling like you're totally a failure and nothing that you're doing is making any sense. What can we notice about this lady on this picture? What can we read from, the way she looks on the picture? Does she look happy and alert? Yeah, she's present, absent. She's present, but she's not there. Yeah, she looks like she's overwhelmed. She's like she put her head down. Yeah. And so, how do we deal with burnout? She looks overwhelmed. I totally agree, Timothy. Yes, she looks tired. She looks beat. Yeah, I agree, King. Let's go on to the next slide. So there are things that we can actually do to prevent burnout. One, having some boundaries around our work and the rest of our life, engaging in regular exercise. Oh, interesting, Mike. She's tired despite the coffee. I didn't even notice the coffee. That's so perceptive. Getting adequate sleep, taking planned vacations, having hobbies, and keeping in touch with family and friends. Let's go on to the next slide. So, how do we guard against excessive stress and burnout? One, recognize what you can control and what you cannot control. Consider the meaning of your work and ask yourself from time to time, what drew me to my profession and how much am I enjoying what I'm doing? How well am I working at? Am I working? Am I excelling at my work? Okay. How does the work fit into your community and the larger world? Yani, what is the purpose for your work? Also, you need to keep an eye out for fellow colleagues. And it's good to have somebody, at least one or two people in the office who you look out for one another. How are you? And you're like, fine. But if you're really not fine, they're like, fine. We agree that stuff is fine. Yeah, how are you? I'm fine. But how are you really? And you're able to say, you know what? I'm not feeling so good. I've not been able to sleep the last 3 days. This and that is happening. And, and then you'll be able to talk through your issues and perhaps go to see somebody at the employee assistance program or get professional care if you need it. And then it's also important for you to identify what things stress you and find ways of trying to coping with them in a healthy way before they happen. So that if something, maybe the way a colleague walks in, or the way your boss talks to you, or the way the work is arranged is stressful for you, then you find a way of navigating around it and adapting or altering your response to it so that you remain peaceful and you're able to function well at work. Let's go to the next slide. So how do we manage stress? Generally, you identify the source of the stress, and then you sort the possible reasons for the stress in 3 categories. A, those with a practical solution that you can deal with, those that will get better with time, meaning let it be for now, and those that you can't do anything about, and try to release worry of those that will get better with time or those that you cannot do anything about. And you also need to review your lifestyle from time to time and ask yourself, am I taking on too much? Or is it, am I trying to do too much with what I have? Should I step back a little? Maybe I should take a break. Maybe I should ask for a break. Okay. Maybe I should go for my leave. If I can't go on leave, maybe I can take a mini break at my desk. Okay. Maybe I can do something that makes me happy during my lunchtime. But anyway, let me not go ahead of myself. Let's go on next to the next slide. So in mental health, we have this thing called the circle of control. And when you come across something that is stressful, it's important for us to remember that the only thing we have control is ourselves, the inner circle. We have control over our thoughts, our words, our actions, behavior, reactions, our decisions and choices, and our attitude, mindset, our mood, and our work ethic. But we do not have control over other people's actions, what they do, what they say. And beyond that, there are other things that are actually way beyond us, such as the weather, world peace, what is being said in the media, strangers' threats, cyber threats, strangers' behavior and driving habits, such as those, so that you know that what you have control is yourself. When you're interacting with somebody else, you can only respond to what they are doing or what they are not doing. And beyond that, you can just be concerned, but you cannot control things that are like happening in the wider world. And so for you to feel more peaceful and less stressed, focus on what you can control, and the ones that you cannot control, learn to adapt to them, avoid them, or to move away from them. Next, let's go on to the next slide. So let's go back again to this National Guidance on Workplace Mental Wellness 2023. I urge all of us to download these guidelines and also share them with our employers if you are not, and with our employees, and try and mainstream them into our workplaces, because since an average adult spends a significant amount of our time at the workplace, workplaces with good supportive environments can be a source of satisfaction and growth, as well as a place that fosters wellness. And on the opposite end, if a workplace is highly stressful, as we have seen, with minimal support, it can contribute to the onset of new mental health conditions. So these guidelines were put in place so that we can promote wellness at work, mental wellness at work, and provide mechanisms for screening people who have mental health disorders, so that they can be linked to care and recovery for those who are being affected. Because if you're part of a team and there's a member of a team who's not functioning well, you're likely going to have to take up their part of what's being done. And if that happens long term, then it's likely to be very, very stressful. But also, if somebody, let's say, has a problem with, let's say they're addicted to, they're overusing, they're drinking too much, or they're using marijuana and they can't function and things like that, then they need to go for care, and then they need to go for rehabilitation, and then they need to have a return to work policy that allows them to gradually reintegrate back into the workplace. And sometimes, and then there should be a workplace policy that says how many times somebody, can access care and what kind of care, and also mechanisms for helping people reintegrate back into work, especially when they've been unwell for one reason or another. Let's go on to the next slide. So basically, this slide is kind of like a break slide to say, the reason why the National Mental Wellness Guidelines were put in place is so that all of us look like this when we want to go to work. How do these ladies look, people? Let's have some descriptions. How do they look? I mean, in terms of their mood. Happy. Yes, Janet. Janet says they're happy. Anything else? Relaxed. Yes, Doreen, they're relaxed. They look excited. Life is good. Yeah, Mbaka, yes. Jovial, Benson, yes, I totally agree. And they are so well dressed, isn't it? You can tell they took time to dress up. They look glowing. They look excited. Yes, King, they actually totally do look glowing and excited. And we hope approachable, nice. And so they actually look excited about life. And that life includes the workplace. Let's go on to the next slide. So how do we set up a successful workplace mental wellness program? One, it must start from the top. This comes directly from the workplace mental wellness guidelines. And so first you obtain leadership support and commitment. And therefore what the mental health division and the psychiatrists and psychologists are doing throughout the country going forward is training employers and employees, starting off with the managers. We've already started doing this at Kenyatta National Hospital where I work, on what it means, what it means to be mentally well at work, how to identify common mental health conditions, how to set up a workplace mental wellness policy, how to set up a workplace mental wellness program, and how to what to do about it when you have employees who are going through things that are affecting their ability to cope at work, their ability to be productive and to be fruitful, and how to support one another through difficult times, and also how to have incentives in place for healthier work-life balance. So if you want to set up a workplace mental wellness program, first you have to talk to the management. So obtain leadership support and commitment, appoint a workplace mental wellness committee, and ask them to develop a workplace mental wellness policy, develop a costed work plan on mental wellness and mobilize resources. And then you operationalize the mental wellness program. And then you keep on undertaking continuous monitoring and evaluation and improvement. So you look at it every 3 months, what's happening, how are we going, how many sensitization sessions have we done, how many how many employees have we reached, how are people doing at work generally. And every 3 years, you then need to reassess again what the needs are to organization and how well your employees are doing in terms of their mental health. So this is basically the framework on how to set up a successful workplace mental wellness program. Let's go on to the next slide. So talking about mental health disorders of the workplace, it's important. Awareness is key for us, for managers and everybody in the organization, starting from managers down to the newly employed employee who just walked in the door yesterday, so that we need to be able to identify if somebody is unwell or needs help. So common signs of mental health disorders at the workplace include changes in the mood or behavior, such as increased irritability, somebody is having mood swings, or they're socially withdrawing, they're getting upset for no particular reason, they're quarreling, there's conflict in the office, their performance decreases, they're not as productive as before, they're missing deadlines, making errors in their work, or they keep on taking off duty, frequent absences or arriving late without valid reason, difficulty in concentration, finding it difficult to focus on stats and being forgetful about assignments, physical symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, unexplained physical ailments despite treatment. Let's go on to the next slide. Common signs of mental health disorders of the workplace: social withdrawal, avoidance of social interactions. We used to go for lunch together, or you're supposed to be participating in team activities. No, you're not interested. Or visible signs of distress, such as crying, spells, panic attacks, outbursts of anger, which can happen from time to time. But if this is happening all the time, then it is possible that somebody needs extra support and care. Increased substance use, such as increased use of alcohol and other substances as a coping mechanisms to stress, or whatever is going on in their lives. Changes in appearance, somebody who used to come to the office so well dressed, looking nice in their uniform, or in their regular clothing, you find that they're neglecting their personal hygiene, or they have significant changes in their appearance, excessive perfectioning, being overly critical of oneself and others, leading to unrealistic expectations and stress. So these are common signs of mental health disorders at the workplace. Let's go on to the next slide. This slide actually attempts to show us, we've said that depression and anxiety are the most common mental health disorders that are often not recognized in the community and even at the workplace. So what do you see if somebody is yourself or your loved one, if you're unwell with depression? You'll find somebody's getting late for work, for example, or getting late for class because they're struggling to get out of bed. They wake up feeling tired. They have a persistent low mood lasting 2 weeks or more, eating a lot or not eating at all. They feel sad all the time. They might have changes in their weight, might lose a lot of weight or put on a lot of weight. They might withdraw, they're likely to withdraw from social activities. And that is what you see. What you don't see is that they're experiencing all these things that are under this iceberg. Remember the Titanic? The Titanic was the best and the most luxurious ship of its time, but it was brought down by an iceberg because it's only 10% of the iceberg that was peeping out of the water, and the other 90% is what made the Titanic run aground. In the same way, we need to be careful that when somebody tells you they are depressed or you notice something, some of these symptoms in their lives, it's okay to ask, are you okay? How may I be of help to you? Would you like to talk a little bit about what's going on? So that they can then tell you about what you're not seeing. They might be feeling disconnected from the world. They might be experiencing suicidal thoughts. They might be feeling that life is not worth living. They might not be getting any joy out of anything. They might be having difficulty in concentration, feeling misunderstood, feeling like they're not important. And all this is an illness that is treatable. Let's go to the next slide that talks about anxiety. So if somebody has anxiety as a disorder, as in the anxiety is affecting their functioning, they might withdraw socially because they're afraid of making mistakes. They might get into outbursts. They might be on edge all the time. They might be over planning. You might ask them to do a presentation, then they're like, no, I can't do it tomorrow. I have to, go over it 20 times before I make the presentation. They are nervous all the time or they're fussy. But that could be most likely because what you don't see is that they're feeling unsafe all the time. They're having pain. They're feeling panicky. They're questioning, their worth. They're having intrusive thoughts. They're feeling like a burden. They might even have physical symptoms of anxiety, feeling their heart is beating very, very hard, feeling they can't go to sleep, feeling they can't relax. And then all this contributes to their performance or non-performance. And we are saying that depression and anxiety are common and treatable mental health disorders that many people live with. Disclosure, I live with depression and anxiety, and it's been a journey and a half. But I'm really thankful that I really have a supportive workplace, and I've also been able to stand up for myself and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And the fact that I take my treatment, I go for therapy, and I'm able to interact well with my colleagues, and we're able to divide up our work, helps me to function well at work and still to be productive. Let's go on to the next slide. So if you want to screen yourself for depression and anxiety, at the end of this webinar, have a look at this slide and look at the questions. There are only 4 questions there. And if you answer these questions about little interest or pleasure in doing things, have you been feeling down, depressed, or hopeless over the last 2 weeks? Are you feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge for no particular reason over the last 2 weeks? You're not being able to stop or control worrying over the last 2 weeks? If you answer these 4 questions, and your total is 3 or more, it means you're likely to be having undiagnosed depression and anxiety, and you need to reach out for help, either to a psychologist like Doreen or a psychiatrist like myself. Let's go to the next slide. So let's look at some of this. Are these statements true or false? People say that people with depression are just lazy. Is that true or false? Any response? False. Doreen says false. And that false, yeah, it's false. Depression makes people seem lazy because they lack energy and they feel overwhelmed and they lack motivation. Thanks, Genevieve. Yeah, even Mike says it's for people. Others, actually, all these statements are false. That people with schizophrenia are violent, that's not true. Caroline, thank you. People living with mental health disorders should snap out of it. Mental health disorders have a neurobiological basis, imbalance in the neurotransmitters in your brain. That's why people feel and behave the way they do. It's like telling somebody with diabetes to snap out of it. They can't. Their pancreas is sick and therefore not producing enough insulin, and that is why they need to get the injections and the tablets. And that is why, in the same place, if somebody has an addiction or they're suffering from depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, etc., it's not a moral weakness. It is because they have something going on in their brain that makes them to be unwell, and therefore they need treatment and support. There's also this myth that only mad people visit psychiatrists. Really? And also that all psychiatrists are mad. Really? People also think that psychotherapy is a waste of time and money. Psychotherapy is not just talking. It is actually treatment that is delivered through relational interaction with a client to help them identify the problem that they're experiencing and to deal with it. And some people think that mental health disorders cannot be treated. That is not true. There are affordable and available treatment for mental health disorders and support. And that another myth is that people living with mental health disorders cannot be productive and people. That is not true. With the right support and treatment, people living with mental health disorders can be as productive as you and I. Let's continue. So how can you identify whether, at this point now going onwards, I want us to become a bit more personal. And I want us to start scoring your mental health, your workplace, whether it's a mentally healthy workplace. If you work at a mentally healthy workplace, people feel supported and happy coming to work, and they're comfortable talking about their mental health. Question to the audience. Do people feel comfortable talking about their mental health at your workplace? Or that point has never arisen? Do people feel comfortable talking about mental health at your workplace? Anyone? Benson says no. No from Carol. No. I'm getting a lot of no's. Okay. And typically no. And why typically no? Because of stigma and discrimination. People might be afraid to talk about their mental health at the workplace because they're afraid of being stigmatized and discriminated against. They're afraid of not being promoted. They're afraid of being thought of as less than. They're afraid of being thought of as less competent than other people. While these are common conditions, common disorders, common diseases that can be treated just the same way you treat hypertension, asthma, or diabetes. So if you're in a mental health workplace, we need to start talking about the mental health. And one of the slogans that we have in the mental health community is that it's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to speak up and say, this is what I'm experiencing, and to be able to expect support from the people around you. So if you're in a mentally healthy workplace, there should also be a positive. Yes, Dorothy said, well, you're afraid, might be afraid of being sacked or dismissed. In a mentally healthy workplace, there's a positive work culture and understanding that mental health is everyone's responsibility. And that stress and other risks to mental health are to be managed, identified and managed. And people feel safe and supported to talk about mental health. And you have resources for mental health treatment and support, such as an employee assistance program. That's what EAP stands for. And mental health support is tailored for individuals and teams. So this is a key slide that I'd like you to please think about and also share with your friends and with your colleagues and at your workplace. Let's go on to the next slide. So how do you promote good mental health in the workplace? One, develop and implement a workplace wellness policy. As we said, we have a wellness policy, workplace wellness policy and policy guidelines as a document that you can download from the internet, provided by a government. Develop and implement professional conduct guidelines. In that, people in this organization, this is the way we will relate to one another. This is the way we will talk to one another. This is the way we will resolve conflict. This is the way we will manage our stressors. This is the way we'll be able to deal with problems. This is the way we'll be able to also recognize and reward when we are doing well, and when teams are doing well. This is the way we'll be able to support one another through good and bad. Protect your staff from bullying, harassment, and discrimination. You need to have a policy about that. Ensure your staff have the right level of training and support that matches their tasks. Talk to your employees about mental health in the workplace. Be open about mental health and check in to see how your employees are doing. If you're a supervisor, how are the people under you doing? How are the other managers doing? How are the top management also doing? And appoint and empower mental health wellness champions in your organization. What are other methods of promoting good mental health in the workplace? Let's go on. Set up and equip an employee assistance program. Provide resources for promoting mental and physical wellness, such as gym membership, access to clubs, confidential counseling, and physical and mental health treatment, regular debriefs, team building, employee reward and recognition systems and programs, and promote self-care activities as some of the ones that we're going to be looking at towards the end of this presentation. Promote a growth mindset and self-compassion. You are human after all. People will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. And therefore, we need to practice self-compassion. When you're talking about growth mindset, it's a mindset of if you fail at something, it's not the end of the world. You don't think, oh my goodness, I didn't, get 100% on this assignment. No, I got 75. Nisawa, I'm going to get better at it next time. In fact, somebody said that one of the perfect examples of a growth mindset is that somebody goes for an interview and they are not selected for the job. And I'm told that there's a community in this country, which I will not name, that if they go for that interview and then they don't get the position, when they come back home, you're asked to, so did you get the position? No, they couldn't afford me. So in that way, they're not seeing the failing the interview as the end of the world. You are seeing it as, I am not there yet, but it's okay. At least I have the experience of what the interview is like. Okay. So other ways of promoting mental health in the workplace is provide training for upskilling and skill gaps, and also provide a clear pathway for career progression, and model empathy and work-life boundaries. Doreen, you're laughing. Yeah, they couldn't afford me at the last interview I went for. Their loss. Anyway, I'm still there. So, when the right person comes along, they will afford me next time. Yeah. So let's go on. It's also good to laugh from time to time. Laughing is good for you. Fine. So, as we near the end of this presentation, I want to look at several dimensions of employee well-being, first from a general point, and then we're going to go to practical tips on self-care and how to manage your mental health at the workplace. So there's this place called Great Place to Work. They partnered. Yeah, it's true. Nice. They couldn't afford you, Anne. Yes, Great Place to Work partnered with researchers at my school, Johns Hopkins University, in a special study to determine what makes employees feel happy and well, employee well-being. So they surveyed 14,000 people from over 37 countries to better understand the trends in the average day-to-day experience of well-being and their workplace. And they found that employee experience is influenced by many factors, but 5 factors are key for creating the climate necessary for positive employee well-being. So let's go to the next slide. Number 1, if you want your employees to be mentally well, they need to have mental and emotional support. What is this? This relates to the feelings and experiences that build and sustain positive mental energy. As in, an individual who is experiencing strong mental support can better manage workplace stress and anxiety. If you walk into work and you know that your colleagues have your back, if you walk into work and you know that you can tell your manager, this is what I'm going through, if you call in sick and they believe you when you actually tell them, I went to the hospital and this has happened, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, get well soon. If you have good, strong mental health support, then you're able to function better at work. So mental and emotional support are key to employee well-being. What is the second thing about employee well-being? A sense of purpose. What is a sense of purpose? A story is told of a man who was walking somewhere and found some 2 men who are laying bricks, and they were working on a building. So these 2 men were doing exactly the same job. And so he asked the first one, what are you doing? He said, I am laying bricks. And then he walked a few meters ahead and he met another guy who was happy and was whistling, and he was doing exactly the same job this other guy was doing. This other guy was not looking very happy. He was just doing what he had been called to do. But guy number 2, he asked him, hey, how are you? I'm fine. What are you doing? The second gentleman said, I am building a cathedral. So imagine who's worthy at they're both laying bricks, as in they're building the foundation of a cathedral, but one has seen the bigger picture and the purpose in their doing that monotonous bricklaying work, in that they are part of a bigger purpose and building a cathedral, while this other person just sees their work as, I am laying one brick on top of another. Imagine who is happier? The person with the other perspective, who has a sense of purpose. So a sense of purpose comes from experiencing fulfillment, meaning, and progress. So research has shown that having a strong sense of fulfillment is linked to higher resilience and more favorable views. And then when your purpose and your aligns with the organization's mission, You identify your tasks as critical to the success of the organization and of your well-being, and it fosters a higher sense of fulfillment and happiness. In fact, you wake up every morning, you're like, oh yes, I am going to KNH to change the world, one patient at a time. Let's go to the next slide. What's another dimension of employee well-being? The next slide talks about personal support. This is now your relationships with people, working with others, especially managers. As a manager, you need to create a safe, trusting, and respectful atmosphere so that your employees can remain well. And managers can also demonstrate support through employee development and career growth opportunities and mentoring people to become better versions of themselves. Not that you stayed there 10 years and you're still in the same job group. Please, personal support and working one-on-one with the people who are under you, and then helping people to grow as you also grow in the organization. And even in the organizational structure, there should be ways in which somebody is able to grow from one level or another as they continue working in the organization. Next, very important, financial health. I know our pockets have just gotten a big hit from this month because of the issue of the medical cover, the new medical cover that we're getting in Kenya, and that might be a problem for a number of people. What about if you budgeted your salary to cover, like 99% of your salary, and then now a nice big chunk of it is being sent to the medical cover? It means that you need to adjust in one way or another and still be able to function. Now, financial health can be affected when employees lack adequate financial resources. It brings anxiety and fear. How am I going to make ends meet? But when employees earn enough to feel financially stable and capable of living freely, then everybody's happy. I mean, especially, let's talk even about the person who helps your house manager, your domestic manager. I hope that we are paying those people who help us, who makes our lives comfortable, especially in Kenya. We're paying them enough so that they're also able to take care of themselves and their families. And if you're an employer, I hope that you have ways of encouraging your team. There are bonuses, there are prizes, and you also have ways of making sure that somebody is progressively being paid better and better at the work that they're doing, especially as they continue to put in a good job. And the other thing, a financial dissatisfaction can arise when there's inequity in a workplace compensation practices, as in your two people are doing the same job, but they're being paid two different salaries, maybe because of their surname or lack of surname. And this highlights the importance of equal pay promotion practices. And this also has a gender component in that many times we find that in many organizations, you can find a man and a woman doing exactly the same job, but the woman is being paid less. If you're a woman in a position of influence, please look into that. And if you're a man in a position of influence, please also advocate for equal pay in promotion practices for the financial health of your employees and their families. Let's go on to the next slide. So another key dimension of employee well-being is supportive social relationships. They say you are as well. Actually, the way your outlook in life is a sum total of the 5 people you most commonly interact with. And research has also shown that if you want to live a long, healthy, and happy life, you need to have at least 2 or 3 good friends, whether at work or at home or in the society, who you're able to be yourself with and who you have strong social supportive relationship. It's associated with lower stress levels, greater happiness at work, at home, and in the community. And especially since we spend so much time at work, it's also important for us to have meaningful and caring relationships with our co-workers so that we're able to support one another through the ups and downs of life. And an environment of equity and inclusion is necessary to create a psychological safety and teamwork, which can foster a sense of belonging and make your workplace a great place to work. As we go towards the end of this presentation, let's look at now more personal ways of caring for our mental health at work. Let's start with the basics. Are you sleeping? Or are you carrying your work to the house and then you're working until 3 a.m., then you sleep for 2 hours, then you run off? Doreen, you're laughing. Yeah, sleep is so important. Imagine, research has shown that if you sleep, different people have different sleep needs, but it's important for you to sleep. Try and get, 6 to 8 hours of sleep every day. Why? When you're asleep, that's when, if you're a child, that's when you're growing. If you're a grown up, that's when your body is repairing itself. There's something there's something about beauty sleep, huh? Fitness. No? Are you able to factor in some walking, some exercise, even some skipping at home? What are you eating? Are you just taking tea and mandazi every day at work? Perhaps you need to carry food from home so that you maintain your good health. Do you take time to do some hobbies or to interact with people who make you laugh or do things that you really enjoy? What gives you meaning in your work and in your personal life? What helps you recharge? Actually, these are questions which I want us to answer on this wall. Aya, what helps you recharge, people? Tell us. Let's share with one another. What helps us to recharge? What if you're nocturnal and your best work is done at night? I tell you, it happens, Olivia. Yeah, so you structure your life to fit in with the best version of yourself. I'm a nocturnal person. In fact, I am still trying to look for the person who said that all official office meetings need to begin at 8. I think they should begin at 10. Yes. Oh, recharger, laughter. Okay, Doreen. Laughter makes you recharge. Great. Anyone else? What makes you recharge? Music. Yay, Genevieve. Yeah, me too. Hey, King, I'm so glad. Hey, I'm not alone. Point, your 10 a.m. sounds good. I agree. I totally agree. Mm-hmm. Anyone else who would like to tell us what helps them recharge? Music plus cycling. Thanks, Mike. Walking and dancing. Wow, Dorothy. Yes. Anyone else? What helps you recharge? King, playing and watching football. Awesome. Dancing. Leah. Oh, nice. Anyone else? What helps you recharge? Nature. Nice, Olivia. Music and touring. Edwina. Nice. Tabby. Movies. Chatting with relatives. Nice. Anybody who enjoys journaling? Yes, great, awesome. Journaling is so nice. Dorothy, anybody like me who likes playing Scrabble? That helps me recharge. And also singing, music. Doreen, I know you love to sing, and you're such an accomplished singer too. Talking also, yeah, I agree. Puzzles, nice, Dorothy. Scrabble, yeah, King, yeah, we're the same group. You like Scrabble, me too. Baking. Oh my goodness, you guys, let's go and visit Dorothy. Sleeping, Lydia. Good idea. Somebody says sitting idle. Ni sawa. To each his own. So each one of us, you need to know yourself. Self-awareness. What helps you recharge? Do it. Cooking. Caroline, Marubu, Wacha. Spending time with good company. Olivia, nice. Yeah. And then we are now talking about keeping yourself mentally well. Do things that give your life meaning. Factor in things that you enjoy. Writing articles, thanks, Lydia. Seek support, spend regular time with family and friends. And prayer, thank you, Dorothy. Participate in creative non-work activities. Start small and build up slowly. The important thing is make conscious efforts to put boundaries between your work and the rest of your life. Take time to do things that energize you. Also learn to enjoy your work. Learn to enjoy your work. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Thank you so much for sharing. That was awesome. So how do we build resilience? Resilience is like bouncing back from stress, from adversity, from the ups and downs. You're like a ball. When you put it down, it bounces right back up. You need to cultivate relationships. We need to cultivate self-care. We need to cultivate sense of purpose. We need to practice emotions that help us, such as doing gratitude journaling and other things that we'll look at in the next few slides as we wind up. Hello, next slide, please. So there's an acronym here, refresher, on what to do for us to remain mentally healthy. The first R stands for relationships. Cultivate good relationships. Love, laugh, forgive yourself and others. You're human after all. And practice living mindfully in the present. Doreen, I think we need to do a webinar about mindfulness as a mental health wellness tool. But anyway, next time.
Sure.
So, yeah, you agree, yeah? Yeah, it is so important. So that, you are here and your mind is elsewhere. When you're here, be here, enjoy the present, and then move on to the next task. So Work on having relationships that nourish your soul. Factor in some time for exercise. Have some fun. Take some time to enjoy, to do something that you enjoy daily, even if it is for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or during your break, or even as you're driving to work, or you're in the three going to work. Okay? Plug into something that relaxes you and manage your stress. It can be journaling, it can be breathing exercises, it can be laughing, dancing, sleeping, all those wonderful things that people have talked about, playing games, watching football. Check on what you're eating. Are you eating healthy to nourish your body? Your plate needs to have at least 2 or 3 colors every time you have a meal. Okay? Keep hydrated, drink water. Your body is what? 60% water? You need to have water regularly, 4 to 6 glasses per day. Get in some good sleep. It's good for you. It's good for your health. It's good for your brain. It's good for your longevity. Also practice. Another S is self-compassion. Sometimes we make mistakes, or sometimes we're not the best versions of ourselves, and it's okay to be like that because we're human beings after all. Help others, reach out to others, make a difference. Spend some time with nature. I think Olivia would love this. E is for earth. Spend some, have some green spaces where you work. By the way, a green space can also be a green space on your computer screen, or a beautiful green space picture or wall, something on your wall, okay? And have a reason, have a purpose. Restore your sense of purpose. And more importantly, stay connected to the person who created you, because at the end of the day, no one is leaving this planet alive. And it's important for have a relationship with our creator. We're only here for a season. And also through that, plug into your faith community, plug into the people who do same things that you enjoy, and let your workplace be a place of joy and of purpose. The last 2 slides, what does the next slide talk about? It's important to maintain our mental health. Let's look at the next slide, please. On a very personal way, or a very personal note, let each one of us purpose to build our self-care plan. Number 1, assess your needs. Make a list of the different parts of your life and major activities. Number 2, consider, hey, Olivia, you're very welcome. Yeah, that, there's some really beautiful green pictures on the internet of nature. They are so soothing, even as a screensaver, wonderful. So building a self-care plan, first, know yourself, assess your needs. What are the different parts of your life and what are the major activities that's going on? What are your stressors? Okay, think about the aspects of these areas that cause stress and consider some ways you might address that stress. Number 3, devise some self-care strategies. Think about some activities that you can do that will help you feel better in each of these areas of your life. And then number 4, life is full of challenges. Plan for challenges. When you discover that you're neglecting a certain aspect of your life, create a plan for change. And number 5, take small steps, just baby steps. You don't have to tackle everything at once. Identify one small step you can take to begin caring for yourself better. Like I struggle, I'm very much a night person. So, and that's why I struggle with my morning. So I'm trying to sleep like 1 hour earlier. So that way I'll be able to wake up. I mean, get enough sleep, but still, wake up refreshed and in good time for work. Number 6, schedule time to focus on your needs. Even when you don't feel like it, you don't have time to squeeze in one more thing, make self-care a priority. When is the last time you just, went for a nice haircut, or, had your nails done, or bought a good book, or treated yourself to a meal? Cara, I think I'd like to come in for a meal to your place. You said you like cooking. And, or listen to Doreen singing on YouTube. She's such a wonderful, gifted singer. Did you people know that? Apart from being a psychologist. And basically learn to take care of yourself and cut yourself some slack. It's okay not to be okay. And it's also okay to be okay. On your good days, thank God. When they're not so good days, no, it's okay. That also happens. And therefore we can ride the ups and the downs of life. As we end up, let's look at the last 2 to 3 slides. What do they say? Let's adopt a growth mindset. What is a growth mindset? That can be very helpful for building up, resilience. So instead of thinking I can't do this, think I'm still learning and I'll keep trying. Instead of thinking I'm not good at this, ask yourself, put it this way. When you don't quite succeed in something, what can I learn to get better at this? Instead of thinking it's not good enough, say, is this the best I can do? Maybe I can do it in a different way. Instead of saying it's too hard, tell yourself with more practice, it will get easier. Instead of saying I'm afraid of making a mistake, say mistakes are how I learn and get better. That is so, so true. Remember when a child is starting to walk, when they fall, when they start walking on day one, see, they keep on falling. They don't stay seated. They wake up and they continue walking. And one day they're running around the house, even chasing you, and you're chasing one another. Okay? Instead of thinking a more growth mindset, they are better at this than I am. Ask yourself, what can I learn from them? Instead of saying, I don't know how, ask, I can learn how. How can I learn to do this thing? Instead of saying, I can't make this any better, say, I can always find ways to improve on this. And instead of saying, I don't like challenges, say, challenges make me better. Instead of saying, I give up, say, no, I'll try a different way of doing it. And imagine you actually do it. So let's go on to the next slide as we wind up. What does the second last slide show us? Oh, no. Doreen, somebody was trying to come. I hope I've not been cut off. So what are the benefits of creating a mentally healthy workplace? Number one, the one before that, please. There's less staff absenteeism and lost working days, as in people are present and at work. You spend less money on medical bills. There's increased productivity in a thriving economy. There's greater job satisfaction. Your customers are happier. Joy all around. There is reduced staff turnover and better and more satisfying teamwork. And you attract and retain talented workers. And your workers are happy. Your workplace is happy. Your customer is happy. Kenya is happy. Okay. In closing, let's look at what are the keys to happiness and well-being at work. Number one, know yourself. Practice gratitude and mindfulness. Practice meditating on the serenity prayer, as in, Heavenly Father. Do you people know that serenity prayer? It talks about things that you can control and those that you can't control, and knowing the difference. It's a common prayer. Look it up on the internet. Choose your battles. You don't need to respond to everything that comes your way. Sometimes, yes, Genevieve, thank you. You know about the serenity prayer. Yes. Adopt a growth mindset, as we've been reading. If you're a manager, be approachable. Be approachable always, whether you're a manager or the managee, okay? Because we are all at different levels. And also in different spaces, we play different roles. Guard your peace. Decide, you know what? It's okay. You guys, you want to make noise? It's fine. Me, I'm not part of that. Practice assertiveness. Establish clear boundaries around your work-life balance. Establish clear boundaries around the things that are important to you, your time, your hobbies, your work, your friendships, your family, okay? And also check your perspective from time to time. Do you see yourself building a cathedral, or are you just laying bricks? And very, very important, each one of us just gets one temple to walk to, one earth suit to wear when we're here on earth. You need to nourish your body, soul, and spirit used by adequate sleep, nutrition, exercise, and a good balance between playing, work, life, prayer, so that you can be the best version of yourself. Let's look at the last slide, very last slide. This slide says, stop beating yourself up. You're a work in progress, which means you get there a little at a time and not all at once. We are all a work in progress. And each one of us brings a unique set of skills, of talents, and of just the loveliness that makes each one of you unique to every space that you're stepping into, including the workplace. Asanteni. Thank you.